Hello Tennos, Zelp here. Welcome back. Today we're gonna look at some continuous weapons like the Glaceon. Continuous weapons are basically weapons that fires continuously like a beam weapon or a flamethrower like the Ignis. One of the easiest way to identify a continuous weapon is by looking at how the status chance is described. If it is given as status per second, it is a continuous weapon. The status chance displayed is inaccurate, by the way, if you have some form of fire rate mods on. Similar to multi-shot, it is calculated with the amount of attacks it does in 1 second to give you status chance per second. It is worse than having multi-shot because it is very misleading. At default, without any mods, it has a fire rate of 20 and the status chance per second is 35%. According to Wiki, this means that the actual status chance per fire is about 2%. And if you use the values to find the status chance you have when you fire at a max fire rate of 56, you'll realize that you should have about 68% status chance per second. But when you look at the arsenal, it is displayed as 98%, which is wrong. The reason why is because the way they calculate it is like this. They take 35% status chance per second divided by 20 fires per second and get 1.75% status chance per shot. And now since you are firing 56 times per second, simply use that 56 times with 1.75% to get a 98%, which is not how probability works. Because of this banana calculation, your status chance now go above 100%, which means absolutely nothing besides bad math. But still, status chance mods increases the status chance directly, so what you do with those is still accurately displayed unless the default figure is also wrong. What I mean here is that what if the default value is also based on a banana calculation like you see just now, and it is taken from a root value. For example, if the 1.75% status chance per fire is accurate, then by default the value should be about 30% status per second at a fire rate of 20 and not 35%. So let's look at what Wiki has to say. Here, continuous weapon, it basically tells you what are the formula used to show you that value you see in the arsenal. So over here you can see that this is the formula that they use. It's pretty much the same thing or very similar to what I've just explained. So all you have to do is just substitute the values that you get, the bonus values that you get from your mods, and you'll get your status chance per second. And what you want to do with this value is you're going to substitute over here and divide it by fire rate to get your chance per tick. And this chance per tick is basically status chance per fire, also discussed. And if you read on, it will tell you that the value that you get, it can go above 100%. It is actually not guaranteed. Basically it's trying to tell you that it's not accurate and it is wrong. So this is wrong, it's trying to tell you that this is wrong and this is wrong. And finally it says that the actual chance per second is similar to the formula used above for multi-shot weapons. And I think there's a mistake here. It's not supposed to be above because he's referring to this formula, so it should be below. But anyways, so long story short, this is wrong and this is wrong, and this is actually the correct one that we also used just now. But in order to do this, over here it tells you that you need chance per tick, and to get chance per tick you have to use this formula, which is said to be inaccurate. And to get this value you have to use this formula, which is also inaccurate. So if this is wrong and this is wrong, and you're going to use that value over here, Wouldn't that make this one wrong as well? Paradox. Another thing I would like you to pay attention to about the Glaceon is how the beam kinda moves around. So the whole reason why I'm showing you guys this is because of a question my buddy Xander asked about in his channel Xandipants.
I have often found that it will fail to freeze enemies. Don't know why that happens. If you change the magazine size or reload speed, it does funky things. I would recommend just not putting mods on this. I've asked my fellow YouTuber and friend Zelp to cover this, and hopefully he'll tell us what the hell is going on, but for now just leave it as is.
So I dropped everything except my pants to check out the Texon's weapon Artax. It is a continuous weapon. It has that weird wandering motion to the beam like the Glaceons. If the enemy is very far away, it would seem to be less accurate simply because the slight change in angle will cause the far end of the beam to deflect a lot, which in a way makes this a better near-range weapon. If you use a different sentinel like the Diriga or use a mod like the Eagle Eye, it will start to detect enemies from afar and start firing, even though the beam range is actually limited by the weapon. This means that the beam may not actually get to hit the enemy if it's very far, and using Sinister Reach will help you with that. But for the reason I've mentioned just now, your accuracy is going to suck, so I wouldn't recommend it. Now about the magazine size and reload speed, I have two theories and they are just theories, however, they both seem kinda legit. So let's talk about what's weird about it first. You will realize that having high fire rate, magazine size, and reload speed does not affect the attack pattern or timing, which is about 3 seconds zap followed by a 1 second pause and then repeat. So the question here is why? If fire rate is higher, wouldn't the duration of the zap be lower? If the magazine size is larger, wouldn't the duration of the zap be higher? If the reload speed is reduced, wouldn't the pause between each zap be quicker? So here comes the theory number one. The weapon has a unique attack pattern that is fixed. The attack rate, magazine size, and reload speed figures are just dummy values that doesn't mean anything. But the fire rate still affects the status chance and damage, just like other beam weapons. The second theory is that the 3-second zap is actually one complete fire, due to the animation delay or something which will not allow it to fire the next zap until after 4 seconds. This means that the time gap between each zap is not a reload, which is why it's only 1 second, but instead it is just a part of a unique attack pattern of the weapon. If this is true, then those figures now actually mean something. So the magazine size will actually mean how many of those 4-second zaps it does before it starts reloading, and when it finally do reload, it will be reloading at a rate of 1.5 seconds. And of course, the fire rate does what the fire rate does for continuous weapons, which is provide damage and status chance per zap duration. The way to test this second theory is really just to see if any change in attack pattern during that reload when the magazine run out. So this means monitoring it and counting the amount of fire it does until it reaches its maximum capacity of magazine, which may come down to about, I don't know, end of 7 minutes. To be honest, it really doesn't matter even if the magazine lasts for only 5 minutes. What is that 1.5 seconds of reload to 5 minutes? But if you're some kind of truth seeker and you just want to know, at least you can find out if the second theory is correct. And if you would be so kind to share that finding, I will put your name followed by the results down at the description. Also, some kind of proof would be much appreciated. For the last question, which is why does the slow proc stop functioning when you lower the fire rate? Sadly, my answer is also just a theory, and to help you understand it, I've prepared a small visual aid on my Excel spreadsheet. So here you will see how a continuous weapon beam kinda works. let's say you have a fire rate of 1 and your damage is 100. So for every second you are doing 100 damage, and in 10 seconds you would have done 1000 damage. If you increase your fire rate to, let's say now 2, which is 100% increment, this means you fire twice in a second. So with the same damage, you will do 200 damage per second and 2000 damage in 10 seconds. Now Wiki says that this co-proc is guaranteed, and this means that it has to be somehow separated or independent, considering that if the weapon were to proc something else, let's say viral, it won't be able to proc co. But at the same time, it has to be kind of linked, because it has to make sure that it hits the same enemy. It has to make sure that the rate of attack is the same as well. In computer language, 1 is usually represented as yes and 0 is as no. And in this case, 1 will mean that it procs coal and 0 it doesn't. Any value that you get more than 1 should also be a yes, and any value that you get less than 0 should also be a no. But then when it comes to the in-between, it really depends on the tolerant level of the system that has been set. So for example, if it's 0.2, it could mean that since it's closer to 0, it is a no. And if it's 0.7, it's a yes because it's closer to 1. But it all depends on the programmer and the developer programming it on the tolerance level. Now imagine that this value is tied to the weapon's mechanics. Since every single attack has to be a guaranteed proc, you could think of it this way, like every single attack frame is delivering a 1. That 1 value means the proc, right? So if you were to increase the amount of frame within a second, or if you think of it like if you increase the fire rate, then that 1 will potentially become more than 1. It could be a 1.5, a 2, okay? And likewise, if you reduce the fire rate, it could go below 1. And again, depending on the tolerance level, it may start to change from a yes to a no. And after many testings, I managed to narrow down that tolerance level to somewhere between a fire rate of 0.88 and 0.83. Here are the mods that I used to get that value in my experiments. Okay, that is my time. I know there is many theories in this video, but with the limited information we are getting from the developers, this is what I believe to be the more likely explanations. I hope you guys gain something from watching this, and Xander, I hope my reply to you, even though it might not be definite, but maybe satisfying enough. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. As I grow bigger, I can focus more on doing these things for you guys. And since I do not have a fixed schedule yet, don't forget to hit the bell button to make sure that you do not miss my upcoming videos on Warframe. Once again, this is Zelp. Have a pleasant day, Thanos. Bye-bye. Oh, and on behalf of one of my operators in Discord, I would want to point out that
knowledge